Okay, so let's start today's class. So just a quick recap of support vector machines, right? So we were maximizing the margins, right? And this was the equation of a hyperplane, right? The idea was to correctly classified everything. Therefore, this will satisfy always because everything will be classified correctly, right? Then I am interested in like maximizing the margin. Therefore, I need to find out the perpendicular distance of a point from a hyperplane. For that, I am having this, right? So if it is correctly classified and then I am finding out the perpendicular distance, then for this is what I can do. Plugging the y formula is this, right? Now I want to find out the minimum distance, like a point which is very close to a hyperplane. That's why I'm doing minimum overall, right? Because W was independent, I have taken outside. Then I scaled my W such that the minimum distance should be equal to 1. If it is equals to 1, then this term will go away, and I will left with only this much, right? This is what I have, but this is also not convex. So what we can do, rather than maximizing over 1 by W, we can minimize, right? We can minimize this term. We can minimize W only. And rather than minimizing W, we can minimize W square as well. And then multiply by half doesn't affect anything. The only thing that is there that we need to satisfy these constraints, right? It means all the perpendicular distance, scaled perpendicular distance from a hyperplane should always be greater than or equal to 1, because what we have intentionally done, the closest point will always be equal to 1. So therefore, the farthest point will always be greater than equal to 1. This is fine. Then what we have said, that we can convert into a dual problem, right? So we construct a Lagrangian. So there are so many constants what we have. We multiply all those constants with Lagrangian multiplier and then add it to our objective function. The objective function is this, right? So this is my Lagrangian. To convert into a dual, I will replace all W's and B's, right? But I know that to replace W's and B's, I want to first minimize, right? Why it is thus? Because if you remember this case, what I was doing, I was minimizing over for every lambda, I was minimizing, right? For every lambda, I was minimizing it. So when I was minimizing for every lambda, this is what I will get, right? So it means I don't care what is my lambda, but if you fix the value of lambda, I got some curve, I will minimize over it. So minimize over what? I want to minimize over W. So that's why I'm minimizing here, right? So that's why I want to minimize over W. So when I minimize over W and B is also in the W, so I take a derivative and put it equals to 0. This is what after minimization, this value should be satisfied. What I can do a trick, I plug this value of W and B back into this objective function. Hence, W and B can be seen in terms of A, T, and phi, right? So this is my dual function, which is always a convex function, and with all these constraints, right? And this is a very nice function now. I can minimize it, right? And this kernel, this is a kernel function, linear kernel function, which can be written as this, right? So this is what we have done. Then I was discussing this part, right? So just a quick check, am I connected? Do you have any question? Can you write yes or no for this? Do you have any questions so far? Okay, very nice, good. So you are at the verge of now going to know this support vector machine, which is known to be very hard problem in machine learning field, right? So I feel this will make quite sense to you from today onwards. So these are the KKT conditions. As I know that Lagrangian, as I told you that Lagrangian multiplier should always be greater than equal to 0. In my first lecture on first slide, right? There is a reason for that. Then we said that constant should be satisfied, right? constraints should be satisfied. So this is saying that perpendicular distance should be always greater than equal to 1. This is the second constraint what is saying, right? You have done intentionally that thing. The third conditions what it says, the third condition what it says, that either your Lagrangian multiplier should be 0 or your gx should be 0, right? Gx is a constraint here. So gx, what it says, that it should be the constant of gx was what? It should be greater than or equal to 0. So if gx should be 0, it means you are gx should be 0, then it means you are actually evaluating at the boundary condition. It means you should, your gx should be equal, have a equal rather than inequality. You should have an equality only, right? So either your gx should be 0 or your Lagrangian multiplier an should be 0. So let's see one by one. If my Lagrangian is 0, right, it means my constraints are not effective. If my Lagrangian is 0, my constraints are not effective. This is the case when my margins are not decided by the samples, right? There could be some samples here, there could be some samples here. So these samples doesn't have any role in deciding the margins, maximizing. So there are, let's say, one more sample here. So for this, my an is 0, right? For this, my an is 0. So it is 0 here. For this, it is 0 because it is inactive constraint. They are not actually deciding what is my margins. They will not play any role here, right? Now the other constant is gx should be 0. When gx should be 0, it means nothing, that my t and yn equals to 1. It means I am talking about those points which are actually one distance away, right? Which we have done. So one distance away are only those which are nearest, right? So there will always be 2 points of opposite class. Why there are always be 2 points? Because if because when you move your hyperplane either on left or right, it should be equalized somewhere in between, right? So there you will always find 2 points, minimum 2 points, that is on the either side, right? So for these 2 points, your perpendicular distance should be equal to 1, and then you because you need to meet this condition, complementary slackness condition. If this Tn Yn is equals to 0, then you can have a liberty to make An is equals to non-positive number, which is always greater than equal to 0, right? So then for these some An can have a greater value, right? It can be having some non-zero number, right? For these values, it can have greater than value, right? So this is the case here. So it means there are some points that to be that need to understood here. If you have some n number of points, only few points are playing a role in deciding the margins, right? These points are known as support vectors, right? For which your Lagrangian is not 0. Otherwise, for a Lagrangian multiplier, I should say, for other points, your Lagrangian multiplier is always equal to 0, right? Any question on this so far? Yes or no? Okay, good. You can be quite quick responsive, so that I can get to know like whether you are interested or you are understanding or not, right? Very nice. So don't feel like bit. Okay. So then now the prediction comes, right? So what my value of W, just to recall that the value of W was this, right? And where I have derived this value of W from here, right? This was my value of W, and it was summation over A and Tn equals to into phi x. This was some weighted sum of all the values of input x, right? Weight is given by An into Tn, right? It is a weighted sum of something, some your input variables. So now see this thing. But I told you that for all, not for all points An is equals to some positive, for most of the points An is equals to 0. If most of the points An equals to 0, it means that particular term will be 0 in this summation, and you will left only for those points which are actually at the margin equals to 1, right? And these are the only points which will decide your weight vector W, right? So I repeat the sentence just to for the clarity. I say there are so many points, right? There are so many points in your data set which are somewhere here, we are somewhere here, but there could be some points for which your Lagrangian an is not equal to 0. And if they are not equal to 0, so only the respective term will be available here in this summation, right? And for the rest of the term, they all will be 0 and they will not participate in deciding W, right? So hence, you can always calculate your W by seeing only these support vectors, right? That's what I'm saying here. Because rest of the things are 0. Fine. Okay. Then let's do the prediction then. So just to do a prediction, you need to see the support vector. And let's say you have some m support vectors, right? Then this summation will go from not to n only till m, and you will take only those m support vectors which are actually there, right? am, tm, and then wherever you are predicting, like the label, this is x where for which you want to predict, you put this x here, and these are the support vectors. You take a dot product with all the support vectors one by one and weight them with all this a and tn, and which is available for all support vectors, right? The only thing is left now how to what is the value of b, right? Let's see what is how to decide the value of b. So we know that this was a constant, that tn yn equals to 1, right? And yn is nothing but it is w transpose x plus b, right? And w is nothing but it is a summation over all support vectors. It is all over all support vectors. So what you are replacing your w with that summation, right? This is what you have replaced over all support vectors, and this b is as it is, and then you're multiplying it with tn to satisfy this constant tn yn equals to 1, right? This is how you are getting this thing. And this s is a set of support vectors, only support vectors, right? Then you just do some algebra here. You just multiply both sides by tn. So you multiply both sides by tn. So this tn into tn will always be 1, right? Whether it is negative negative or positive positive, it is always 1. So this will be 1 here. And you will get 1 into tn is nothing but tn, right? Then you just to calculate a b, you just take this summation side here, and it will come here in the negotiation, right? And this is what it is here, right? So you can calculate actually b from only any of the one support vector. But just to make it more stable, what this equation is doing, it is calculating b for every support vector and then it is normalizing it, right? So if there are 3 support vectors, it is calculating b from 1, 2, 3 and third support vector, and then it is dividing by 3, right? It is taking an average of that b. Though it is good enough that if you calculate b from one of the support vector, that's fine, right? Any question on the slide? Yes or no? Very good. Very good. Okay. So if you don't have any questions, so till here. Then let's come to because you have seen all these things in this form. Like most of the time when we did linear regression, you had composed error function, and that error function was something like this, right, of this form. So let's try to form this support vector machine cost function into this form. So what it says, that you are actually minimizing it. You have to minimize this cost function, right? You have to minimize this. So you want to minimize this cost function over w. W means w comma b, right? So that's why this W, let's say this is W is augmented vector where B is also there. So you are minimizing it over lambda and B. And this is the extra summation term which says that you need to satisfy your constraints. It means either this term should be equal to 0. When this term is equals to 0, it means you are saying my y and tn equals to 1. Either this should be equal to 0 or greater than 0. It means you are saying that when it either this term is equals to 0, it means you are talking about the support vectors, or it is greater than 0. It means you are talking about those points which are beyond these margin hyperplanes, right? So either this is equal to 0 or greater than equal to 0, then the cost will be 0, right? If it is not so, let's say this is cross on one side, and the other side there are circles. So if it is not, if there is one circle, one cross here, then it means this is violating my constraint, and what it will do, it will not be equal to 0 and it will raise to infinity, right? This is what this cost function is saying. So just to rephrase it again, I need to satisfy this constraint to make this function 0, right? And if this constraint is not satisfying, then I am going to infinity. This constraint is implicitly saying that everything is fall like in right place. If some point anyhow is jumping the hyperplane or like violating the constraints, then only that single point can contribute to infinity, and hence your total cost will be infinity, and you have to minimize it. So in effort of minimizing, what you will start doing, you will start placing that unclassified point or not correctly classified point into a right place, right? So then you tweak your hyperplane such that. So we have so far assumed that data was linearly separable, and you will always able to do that. You will able to do that, right? Any confusion in this cost function? Only two guys understood this, so you can be like, you can be more promptive and more like, yeah, react. You can react on these things. Fine, good. So then if it is not a problem, this is how you can do it. For an example, so there are two things here. We have assumed the data is linearly separable. So if data is not linearly separable, I can apply one trick. What is that trick? I'm asking a question. Whosoever wants to answer, they can unmute their mic and let me know. How, if data is not linearly separable, what the trick you can apply? Kernel trick. Very good, Bhavan. Very good. So the kernel trick you apply, and the kernel trick, what it will do, it will just project your points into some high dimensional plane, in some high dimensional space, and there you may find a linearity, right? So there you may find out a linear separable hyperplane. And just to, if you ask me where is that kernel, so just to be very precise, this is my cost function, right? So here, if I am not projecting into a higher dimensional space, this is what I need to do. I just put, okay, I have already projected into high dimensional space using my basis function, right? Even you can use a kernel trick, and then you can do a Gaussian kernel function here, right? So then you can apply e to the power x1 minus x2 square, right? I think you have done that. Can you nod your head on this? You know what is this, what I am saying right now, right? Can you just nod your head on this by writing yes, that you know what I'm saying here? Very good. Very good. Very nice. So this is how where you can always apply a kernel trick, and this is the always a benefit when we do it into a dual representation. So dual representation always put the things in some dot product form or inner product form of my input x samples, and then I can apply a kernel trick. So this is all right. So though I didn't have that linearly separable places here, so what we did, we apply a Gaussian kernel function here, and then apply Gaussian kernel function, and we found out some hyperplane. So this is a dark curve which is showing an hyperplane, and these are the margins here, right? So these are the margins, and all these and these are the support vectors here which are falling on those margins, right? These are the support vectors here, right? So just to do it in your lab, you can use it on this data set, right? So I will let you know, like it is available in your library. This library is known as, yeah, import make moon, right? From sklearn dataset. It is a make moon, right? Dataset, make moons, right? So you can import this dataset and then apply your kernel function here. So this is what I have done myself last year. So I want you to reproduce this thing. I will help you to give some template so that you can just plug and play and with that thing for a quick start. So this is what I need. I want you to reproduce this, right? So this is your margin here. Sorry, this is your hyperplane, and this is your margin, right? Now you can ask. So this is all right. If you want a current support vector machine, you can apply this Gaussian kernel function, and you somehow get the curve which can separate it. So if you try very hard, even you can get a hyperplane such that this kind of hyperplanes with some margins. But what will happen? Though you can always find some boundary which can separate it, but the generalization will be not that much good, right? Because you are trying to fit very much. If you allow some errors in it, right? For an example, what I mean to say here is, for an example, there is one point here. Let's say this blue point is here, right? Or let's say there is a one cross point here, right? So rather than trying very hard, if you are okay to accommodate some error for one point or some points, then still you will get this margin. And if you are not ready to accommodate these points, then this could be your hyperplane, right? So this is how your hyperplane could look like. So it is your let's say this point was here, so your hyperplane could look like this. So it will go from here, then from here, then from here, right? So this is how your hyperplane could look like. But if you are okay to accept this one error, then this is like this is the same hyperplane which you can see, right? So sometimes it is okay to accommodate some error to improve your generalization. That's what I am trying to say here. Okay, so I will quickly go into that, how to accommodate that error, and there are some quick changes in the cost function. But before then, that I want you to help you to implement this thing. How are you going to do that? So far, just to connect you, I told you till here, right? I told you till here that how to construct the cost function. And this is a dual representation with some constraints, and you need to optimize this cost function, and you will get value of A, right? Are you clear on this point, what I just said? I derived this formulation in dual representation, and I am asking that if I get a solution for A, this is what I need exactly, right? For some, it will be this A is nothing but a vector, right? And it will have some zeros and some non-zeros. Zeros are for which are beyond the margins, and for non-zeros which are on the margin, right? So ultimately, if I solve this optimization problem, I will get a vector, and a vector is nothing. The dimension of a vector will be n by 1, and n is the number of points. So for some support vectors, it will be non-zero, and rest of them, this vector will be 0. Is this making sense to you guys? Very good. Very nice. So now, if you want to solve support vector machine, somehow you need to solve this optimization problem. And it is a quadratic problem. So I will show you how it is quadratic. And then we have some softwares to solve it, right? So we are going to take some help from some softwares. So first, I want to write this problem, right? This is my dual representation here. There is a bracket here. So I can write this optimization problem in this form, which is a quadratic optimization problem. So probably I'm floating next semester convex optimization, and if you're going to take that, then we will clarify more what is convex why it is quadratic problem and all. So for now, you just say that it is a convex problem and it has some global minima, and we can always have a unique solution from it. So this is nothing but this dual representation is a quadratic form. Just to show that it is a quadratic form, we can rewrite it like we can rewrite into this form. And if we able to rewrite into this form, this is a quadratic term, right? By your linear algebra, you can able to make this is a quadratic term, right? So if you take x1, x2, let's say just to quick, it is a diagonal matrix. So it is a1, a2, 0, 0, and then x1, x2, right? x1, x2. What you will get? You will get a1 x square, a1 x1 square plus a2 x2 square, right? a2 x2 square. And if you got here some b, then you could have get 2 plus 2b x1 x2, right? And each of the term is quadratic here, right, of degree 2. That's why I'm saying it's a quadratic form, right? So hence this x transpose px is nothing but you can show it that it is a quadratic form, and this is a linear form. Quadratic plus linear, the highest degree is quadratic. That's why I'm saying it's a quadratic form, right, with some constraints here, right? If you can rewrite your dual problem into this form and then feed it to some software, which is this library, then you can get a vector. Oops, oh my god, I don't know what I've done. Oops, very nice. So then you can get this alpha here, right? This is a vector. Oh, I accidentally just found it out. So this is alpha here, right? So this is if you just send the parameters to this library, it will return the vector of a's, which is alphas here, right? So alphas is nothing but it's a vector of a, which is n by 1, right? So just to connect everything now. So this was my dual representation with these constraints. What I need to do, I need to rewrite this into this form so that I can send my P, which is right here. I have written all these things. So P is H here, right? So I need to rewrite into this form and then send it to the optimizer. So I will just spend some few minutes on this so that you can able to understand it. Okay. So first let's see this term only, right? So here what we can do, if I construct a matrix Hij, right, where each entry of Hij is, okay, so this is, sorry, HNM, I should write HN and HM, right? For NM entry, it is this Tn into Tm and K XM. So it is a vector. It is a it will be a matrix, right? It will be a matrix. And because here n equals to m, it will be n by n matrix. So this H will be a matrix. And on this left side, you multiply vector of A. So A1 into AN. On right hand side, you multiply another this alphas vector A1 to AN, right? You want to minimize over alphas only, right? That was a function here over alpha. You want to minimize this dual function over alpha. So that's why this is the solution in which terms you want to get. So this is your H matrix, right? Each matrix of H can be calculated this way. Just to synchronize it with this, because I want to put it into this form. So I need to additionally add Q transpose X to this. So here I have second summation A trans, this is AN. So I'm just summing all those alphas values A1 plus A2 plus A3 till AN. So how can I write it? I just can take a dot product with all ones here. 1, 1, 1, 1, and there are n entries. And then I will just multiply it with dot product of alphas A1 plus A2, no sorry, A1, A2 and AN. If I take a dot product, it is nothing but I am summing every component here, right? Which is nothing but this, right? So I can write this summation of A1 to AN like a dot product between ones, vector of 1 and A's. So this is what I have written here. So this 1 is nothing but it's a vector of 1, right? So I have written my objective function like this, where I have calculated my A's, ones, right? And Q is nothing but it's a vector of 1 here. H is not, P is nothing but it's a matrix H here, right? Then let's come to the constant. So my constant says that it should be in this form. Gx should less than equal to H, right? So this is my first constraint. I said that A should be greater than equal to 0, my all Lagrangian. So I can multiply it with negative both sides, right? And once I multiply negative both sides, I have to change my inequality, right? So that's how I can change, I can get this form. Now the second say that it have a equality constant Ax equals to B. So now I can rewrite my this constant nothing but T transpose A equals to 0, where this 0 is nothing a vector which is equal to is B 0 vector. This T is nothing but it's a matrix, right? It's a matrix, and this A is nothing over which I have to minimize. It is a X vector. So this is Ax equals to B, and here I have just formed this table for you guys to understand. So my P is nothing but H, Q is nothing but a negative of 1 vector, G is nothing but it's a diagonal 1 matrix, right? So if it is negative AI, so if you multiply it with a diagonal matrix, you can just do, you can plug play it, you will able to understand it, right? Once everything you got to know what is your P, Q, G, H and A, you need to just send it here, right? So you are sending it here, right? What is your, how many vectors you have, and what is your target label? So it is T vector here. So Y is nothing but your target T, right? Y is nothing but it's a T vector, right? And here you are defining everything. So H, you are just multiplying 1.0 because you want to convert it into a floating point matrix, right? Then you are multiplying every Y with 1.0. That's why your target variable is converted into a floating point number. And this is your P. P you are defining P with the help of H, right? As I said that H is nothing but it's an entry here. Then you can define all your Q, G, H, A and B. And when you give it to a solver, right, it will give you some vectors of alphas. Alpha where some are non-zeros and most of them are zeros, right? Any question on the slide? I will share it to you. You go through it spend some time, like 2-3 hours, everything will make sense. It is not now you can ask the question, so you can, I will share these slides today, so you spend your time and you can ask me tomorrow also, right? Okay, then this is the kernel code, this is the kernel code, how you need to predict, right? And this is what is a B, how to calculate a B, right? All those formulas, this is, you need to calculate a B. This is how you want to it. So everything I have told you. Now I am just telling you how to do it in your computer, right? Sometimes mathematics doesn't make so much sense, so you will happy to code it and run it on your system. So this is your W, right? And how I am calculating my S. So what I am doing, for all those alphas where I have some non-negative number, I put 1, and rest of them will be 0. And then it is a S vector, which says that wherever I have non-zero A, I will put 1, and rest of the term I will 0. So wherever I get 1, these are support vectors, and where I get zeros, they are those points which are beyond the margins, right? So this is my S vector. So it is easy to filter, very easy to filter, like which are support vectors. So it acts as a filter, and which are not support vectors, right? Then I multiply I will take all those entries which actually I need to see. I apply this filter, S filter, over my alphas and my target value, which is the Y here, and then I do the things, right? So spend some time. I mean to say, if you understand everything, then 2 to 3 hours are good enough. Otherwise, you need to watch your lectures and then do that. Okay, so just to play with the code, I just found some toy data set on my own. So these were the 3 points from 3 classes, and then I run linear classifier where I am not applying any kernel function, and then when I apply a Gaussian kernel function, this is how my for the same data set, the Gaussian kernel function will apply this, and when I don't apply any basis function, this is what I get, right? So you can also, I encourage you to play with this code, right? Same with this moon code. Everything I will provide here will be like, you can do it with this with the help of this code, right? I feel that what I have not provided here, how to draw these curves, right? So the trick is what you can do, you formulate a grid, right? The formulate a grid here, very close grid, right? So you formulate a grid, and for every point, these are the points, right? You calculate what are the values of Y here. How you calculate a value of Y? Using this prediction formula, right? Using this prediction formula, you calculate the value of Y. So it means this was your decision boundary, and you want to know what is the Y for this point, what is a Y for this point, what is a Y for this point, what is a Y for this point, and you calculate Y for all space here, right? And then what you do, you just want to highlight only those Y's which are equal to 0 and which are equal to 1, right? So you can just use a level curve formula and highlight only those curves where Y value is equals to 0 and where Y value is equals to -1 and where Y value is equals to 1. And hence you can see these curves very easily. You understood this, how to construct the curve? Can you let me know? If you have any confusion on this, I can explain it again. So you need to form a grid. Then for every point in a grid, you predict the value of Y. Then for whole space, you have values of Y's, what is positive, negative, -5, -1, whatever it is. Then you just highlight only those Y's where the Y value equals to 1, where Y equals to 0. Where Y equals to -1, where Y equals to +1, and where Y equals to 0. So you will get 3 curves, and these are those curves. Can you write yes or no for this so that I can be very sure, like what I have said, you understood this? Only 2, Rahul and Vedant. Okay, so that's why I said you just good, very good. So if you just spend your time on this, I am very much sure that you will need to crawl some internet over here and there, and then you can able to implement it. Fine. So tomorrow I will start with this where we can actually accommodate the errors, right? I will discuss one more version of support vector machine, which is known as soft margins. So here we are not in the previous support vector we are not actually accommodating any error there, but here we are a bit flexible, bit lenient, and we can say that we are okay to have some small error, right? So we are not very strict in the sense. So that's why we say that they are the soft margins. So tomorrow we will discuss the second version where we can allow some errors, and this is known as soft margins for support vector machine. And it is all same. That's why I insist you to watch these lectures for support vector machines again to understand tomorrow's lecture. It is important. So spend some time, do some homework, read some text from the book, and then we can meet again tomorrow. Thank you very much. Drop your attendance. If you have any question, let me know now, or tomorrow you can ask.